I propose a definition of evil. Evil is the will to name at any price. Usually, it is said that evil is lies, ignorance, deadly stupidity, brutality, and so on, animality. The condition of evil is much rather the process of the truth. There is evil only insofar as there is an axiom of truth at the point of the indecidable, a path of truth at the point of the indiscernible, an anticipation of being for the generic, and the forcing of a nomination at the point of the unnameable. So we can say too that evil is the forcing of the innameable, nomination of what is without name, artificial nomination on what which is without name, which is the proper of the proper. So the forcing of the innameable exclusion is always a disaster, evil in the form of a disaster. This is because it affects the entire situation by pursuing singularity itself, at which the innumerable is the emblem. In this sense, the desire in fiction to suppress the unnameable, to name at any price, to name all terms without restriction, without limitation, frees the destructive capacity contained in all truth. So evil is something immanent to truth and not something which is exterior to truth. Is the destructive capacity of truth is potency of truth across the fiction of a complete truth is without limitation, without the point of unnameable, which is in subtraction to the potency of a truth. The ethic of a truth resides, from then on, entirely in a sort of caution as far as its powers are concerned. The effect of the undecidable, of the undiscernible, and of the generic, or else the effect of the event, of the subject, and of the truth, must admit the unnameable as a limitation of its path. Evil is finally the desire of the all can be said. All can be said. To contain evil, the potency of the true must be measured. What helps us is the rigorous study of the negative characters of the path of truth. The event is undecidable. The subject is linked to the indiscernible. Truth itself is generic, untotalizable, and the halting point of its potency is unnameable. This gives us four negative categories. And the path of the truth is something across four negative categories. Their philosophic study is capital, for ethic reasons too. This study of negative category, of the four negative category, undecidable, indiscernible, generic, and unnameable, can be nourished by all the thought events which shape our times. For example, the indecidability of an event and the suspension of its name are features of politics that are particularly active today. It is clear, for example, for a Frenchman or woman, that the events of May 68 continue today to comprise an unattested and anonymous premise. But even the 1792 revolution or the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917 remain partly undecided as to what they prescribe for philosophy. The theory of undiscernibles is in itself an entire mathematical theory, from the Galois groups to the undiscernibles of the theory of models. But we can also say that one of the aims of contemporary poetics is to found in language a point of the undiscernible between prose and poem, something like that, or between image and thought. The theory of the generic is at the heart of the ultimate forms of the logic of sets, following on Paul Cohen's theorem, but also the modern politics of emancipation, freed from the dialectic scheme of classes and parties, as its aim something like a generic democracy, a promotion of the commonplace, of equality abstracted from any predicate. So it's possible to speak of a generic politics. And a whole field of prose, such as Samuel Beckett's, tries by successive subtraction to designate the naked existence of a generic humanity. So you can see the study of the four categories: indecidable, unnameable, generic, and indefinable, is really a strong activity in all the fields of modern thought: prose, poetry, mathematics, logic, politics, and so on. And that sort of study, finally, is also the study of what is the construction of a truth, and more ethically, what is exactly the potency of a truth, and the disaster when the potency of the truth is without limitation. Finally, we can see the unnameable is the central motif of thought of the political that wishes to submit and to understand really the crime of Nazism. But unnameable is also the motif of the poet, who explores the limits of the force of language.